I believe you know what faith is. They taught you it's believing without seeing, accepting without questioning, submitting without understanding. They told you that mystery must remain mystery, that doubt is sin, that seeking is disobedience. But what if I told you that this very definition was designed to keep you away from something? What if true faith wasn't blind submission, but the most radical awakening a human being can experience? What if what you call religion was just the shell of something so vast, so luminous, so dangerously transformative, that it had to be buried, fragmented, translated until it became unrecognizable? Breathe, because what you're about to remember isn't new. It's ancient, more ancient than creeds, more ancient than councils, more ancient than the institutions that decided what was sacred and what was heretical. This isn't a story to believe, it's an invitation to see with eyes you forgot you had. And when you see, when you really see, nothing will ever be the same again. There was a time when words were flames. Each teaching was a fire transmitted from mouth to mouth, from heart to heart, alive, pulsating, transforming with each breath of whoever received it. There were no closed books, no petrified dogmas. There was experience, there was encounter, there was a presence so intense that those who touched it were marked forever, not by obedience, but by something much more dangerous, by direct understanding. For years men and women walked carrying that flame. They spoke in parables, because the deepest truths cannot be said directly, they must be experienced, discovered like someone finding water in the desert. And for a time, that flame burned freely. But then something changed, not overnight. It was slow, calculated. The flames were being contained, words were being translated, edited, reinterpreted, meetings were convened in palaces of power, where men who had never felt the fire decided what was orthodox and what was dangerous. Entire texts disappeared, gospels were burned, communities were silenced, and what had been living experience became fixed doctrine. What had been personal encounter became controlled institution. What had been fire became ash, and that ash was declared sufficient. They told you that everything you needed was in those ashes. But you, deep down, always knew something was missing. You always felt a void between what they taught you and what your soul sought. What they hid from you wasn't a minor detail. It wasn't a historical footnote. It was the very core of the original teaching. It was the message that, if fully understood, would dismantle centuries of hierarchies, of mediators, of manufactured guilt and centralized power. And what was that message? So simple it's scandalous, so direct it had to be buried under layers of institutional mysticism. The message was this: the kingdom you seek is not outside, it's not in the distant heaven, it's not reserved for after death. You don't need intermediaries to find it, you don't need permission from any earthly authority to experience it. The kingdom is within you, now, it always has been. You are the temple, you are the place where the divine and human meet. There is no separation except the one they taught you to believe. There is no distance except what you built with your thoughts. And when this truth is understood, when it's really understood in the body, in the breath, in direct experience, everything changes. You no longer need priests to interpret for you. You no longer need institutions to forgive your sins. You no longer need books to tell you how to feel the divine, because the divine breathes in you, right now, in this precise instant. This is not metaphor, it's not poetic symbolism, it's literal experience that was systematically erased from the official narrative. In the early years, before empires adopted and adapted the teachings, there were texts that spoke of this with blinding clarity. Gospels that weren't included in the canon, teachings that were declared Gnostic, heretical, dangerous. Why? Because in them there were no hierarchies. In them every human being had direct access to the source. In them salvation wasn't something given to you, it was something you awakened. And that was unacceptable to those building spiritual empires. Because if each person could find the divine in their own silence, in their own breath, in their own awakened consciousness, who would need golden temples? Who would need pontiffs with crowns? Who would need confessionals and penances, and excommunications? Power is sustained on separation, on the idea that you are here, small and sinful, and God is there, distant and inaccessible, and only through us can you build a bridge. But the original truth said the opposite. It said there is no bridge, because there is no separation. It said awaken and you'll see you were always at home. The texts that survived carry traces of this truth, like seeds hidden in hard ground. The kingdom of God is within you, says a line that survived the edits, But how many times did they really explain what that means? How many times did they invite you to close your eyes and seek it? How many times did they teach you techniques to feel it, to experience it, to inhabit it? Almost never, because teaching you to experience it directly would be teaching you not to need what they sell. I and the Father are one, said the Master. But when you say the same thing, they call you blasphemous. Why? Because that unity is supposed to be exclusive, special, unattainable for you. You're supposed to admire it from afar, worship it, but never live it. But he didn't teach worship from a distance, he taught direct recognition. Everything I do you will also do, and more, he said. Where did that line go in Sunday sermons? Where did the invitation go to awaken your own divine power, not as arrogance, but as supreme humility before what you really are? In the Gospels that were hidden, buried in clay jars in desert caves, found only decades ago, there are passages that would make you tremble. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Do you see? It's not about obeying external rules, it's about manifesting the light you carry. It's about not betraying yourself. It's about not letting your own dormant divinity rot inside you from fear, from guilt, from conditioning. The kingdom is inside you and outside you. When you know yourself, you will be known, and you will understand that you are a son of the living Father. Know yourself, not as modern psychology, as mystical revelation, as the most sacred act possible, because when you truly know yourself, when you go beyond your name, your story, your wounds, your masks, you find something untouched, something that was never born and will never die, something that is the same in you as in me, as in the Master, as in every form of life. That's what they call Christ, not a name, not just a historical person, but the awakened consciousness that can inhabit any human heart that opens enough. But that teaching was fractured, it was converted into a story of external salvation. Instead of awaken the Christ in you, it became believe in Christ outside you. Instead of become what he is, it became worship him because you can never be that. Do you see the inversion? Do you see how a teaching of radical empowerment became one of eternal dependence? And it wasn't an accident, it was strategy. In the year 325, in Nicaea, Emperor Constantine convened hundreds of bishops. He had a problem, a fragmented empire, full of conflicts, and a new religion that could unify it if managed correctly. But the doctrines were multiple, the interpretations, chaotic. There were those who taught that each person carried a divine spark. There were those who practiced meditation, silence, inner awakening. There were women leaders, egalitarian communities, diverse texts. That didn't serve to build an empire, so it was decided. They voted, literally voted, on what was sacred truth, and what was heresy. A single creed was established. Texts were burned. Those who taught differently were persecuted. And what had been a mystical movement of inner transformation became a state religion, with hierarchies, fixed doctrines, and absolute control over who had access to the sacred. Breathe, feel your chest rise and fall. This isn't to make you angry. It's not to make you abandon anything. It's to free you. Because the truth is, that what you sought in churches, in learned prayers, in external rituals, was always available directly. The connection you longed for never required translation. The peace you sought was never in others' words, but in the silence of your own being. And when you understand this, you don't lose anything. You gain everything, because you stop being a spiritual beggar, and become what you always were, a conscious heir to a vastness that cannot be contained in any building, in any book, in any doctrine. The mystics always knew. That's why they were marginalized. That's why they were silenced. Francis spoke with birds because he saw the same presence in them as in himself. Teresa entered ecstasy because she touched that unity directly. John of the Cross wrote about the dark night because he knew the necessary stripping away to find the inner light. Meister Eckhart said, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." And he was persecuted for it, because he was revealing the secret. Because he was saying there is no distance, that observer and observed are one. That you in your deepest center are the very presence you worship, not your ego, not your personality, but yes, that silent consciousness that observes everything, that is prior to all thought, that remains intact regardless of what life does to you. That's you. That's what the Master called the Father. That's what all mystical traditions have pointed to with different words at man, Buddha nature, the Tao, the One, being, different names for the same ineffable experience. And that experience doesn't require belief, it requires stillness, it requires attention, it requires you to stop the constant noise of your mind and listen, not with your ears, with something deeper, with that part of you that exists before language, before the stories you tell about yourself, before the wounds and triumphs. That part that is here now, reading these words, but that is more than the reader. That is the very space where reading happens. You can feel it if you stop, if you breathe, if you stop seeking for a moment and simply are. This is what institutions cannot give you. Because you cannot institutionalize silence, you cannot hierarchize presence, you cannot sell being. So they built something around it. Beautiful rituals, yes. Uplifting music, yes. Community, art, history, tradition, all of that has value. But it became a substitute. It became the map you forgot, is not the territory. And for centuries, entire generations walked holding the map, memorizing it, worshipping it, while the territory remained unexplored within them. You didn't come here by accident. Something in you knew. Something in you never completely believed the edited version. There was always a restlessness, a question that found no answer in sermons, a longing that ceremonies didn't satisfy. Not because you were rebellious, not because you lacked faith, but because your soul remembered, because deep down, beyond conditioning, beyond fear, you knew there was more. You knew the truth had to be more vast, more direct, more alive than what they taught you. And you were right. You were always right. The revelation that would transform Christianity is this, that every human being is a living temple of the divine, that no intermediaries are necessary, that Christ is not just a historical figure to worship, but a consciousness to awaken, that this consciousness is available now, in you, waiting to be recognized, that all teachings pointed inward, not upward, that heaven is not a place you go when you die, but a state of being you can inhabit while you live, that hell is not a future punishment, but the separation from yourself you experience when you forget who you are, that original sin is not an inherited stain, but identification with the separate ego, instead of fundamental unity, that salvation is not being rescued by something external, but awakening to what you already are, that the final judgment is not a future cosmic event, but the present moment in which you choose to recognize truth, or remain asleep, that resurrection is not just a past miracle, but the constant possibility of rebirth in consciousness, of dying to illusion, and rising in truth. Can you feel how radical this is? Can you feel why it had to be silenced? Because if it were massively understood, if millions of people awakened to their own inner divinity, they wouldn't need permission to speak with God. They wouldn't need confessors to feel forgiven. They wouldn't need doctrines to know what is true. Truth would become self-evident in silence. Connection would be direct. And the entire apparatus of control, of guilt, of fear, that has sustained certain structures for centuries, would crumble, not with violence, not with rebellion, but with simple irrelevance, because who needs prisons when everyone remembers they are free? Now is when reading becomes experience. Because I don't want you to believe my words. I want you to see for yourself. I want you to touch, even for an instant, what I'm talking about. Because only then will they stop being concepts and become living reality. So come with me, not with your mind, with your attention, with your presence. Put down your phone if you're distracted. Find a place where you can be with yourself for a few minutes. This is not formal meditation. There is no right way. There is only invitation. Invitation to stop, to be, to see. Close your eyes. Not because darkness is sacred, but because what you look at outside distracts you from what is inside. Breathe. Don't change your breath. Just observe it. In, out. In, out. Your body knows how to do it without you thinking. Your heart beats without your permission. Your cells regenerate without your supervision. There is an intelligence in you that is vaster than your conscious mind, that sustains your life while you sleep, that brought you from one cell to this complexity of bones, blood, thought and emotion. That intelligence has no religion, has no beliefs. It simply is. It simply does. And it's in you. Now, feel your body. Don't judge what you feel. Simply notice. Is there tension in your shoulders? Pressure in your chest? Tingling in your hands? Everything is fine, whatever it is. It's your experience in this moment. And that makes it sacred, because sacred doesn't mean perfect. Sacred means real, means present, means alive. Your body is sacred, not because a book says so, but because it's the place where consciousness meets form, because it's the temple that didn't need to be built, that was woven in your mother's womb, that breathes the same air breathed by prophets and peasants, saints and sinners. There is no separation in the air. We all breathe from the same invisible ocean. Now bring your attention to your chest, to the space behind your sternum. Don't seek anything specific, just rest your attention there, as if you could breathe from that place. And as you do, notice this: there is something that is observing, something that is being aware of the breath, something that is being aware of the body, something that is being aware of these thoughts that appear and disappear. What is that? Don't answer with words, just feel, just notice. That which observes, that which is aware, does it have age? Does it have nationality? Does it have religion? Does it have wounds? Or are the wounds what is observed, and this observer remains intact, silent, present, regardless of what happens? This is what you are, not what you think, not what you feel, not your story, not your achievements or failures. All of that is what is observed. You are the observer. You are the consciousness that contains everything. And that consciousness, when experienced directly, has no limits, has no boundaries. It feels infinite. It feels like home. It feels like peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, like love that needs no reason, like presence that requires no effort. It simply is. And you are that. This is what the Master taught. This is what all mystics have tried to say. Not believe in me, but see what I see. Awaken to what I awaken. Recognize what I recognized. And when you recognize it, when you really see it, you understand why he could say, I and the Father are one, without arrogance. Because the Father is not an old person in heaven. It's this infinite consciousness, this presence that inhabits all forms. And when you recognize yourself as that consciousness, not as ego but as being, you too are one with that, not in theory, in direct experience. Open your eyes slowly. Look around. What you see is not separate from you. The light you see is the same light that allows your eye to see. The sound you hear vibrates in the same space as your ear. There is no outside and inside really. There is a unified field of experience. And you are that field being aware of itself. You are the universe looking at itself through these eyes. You are the divine experiencing itself as human. Not because you're special, but because we all are. Because that's what we are. Beings of infinite light playing the game of finite form, forgetting for a time who we are, so we can have the joy of remembering. This is the explosive revelation, that you're not separated from the source, that you never were, that all the theology of separation, of sin, of the need for mediators, was built on a fundamental lie, the lie that you're alone, that you're broken, that you're not enough, that you need to be fixed from outside. But the truth is you're complete. You always have been. You just forgot. And all human suffering, all seeking, all religion, is the attempt to remember, to return home, to recognize what never left. Institutions offer you a long and complicated path to that home, rules to follow, rituals to perform, confessions to make, sacraments to receive, and all of that can have beauty, can have value as practice, as community. But the secret they hid from you is that you can arrive home at any moment, in one breath, in a moment of stillness, in an instant of total presence. Because home is not a place. Home is this moment when you stop fleeing from yourself, when you stop seeking outside, when you stop completely and recognize here, now, this I am. The Gnostic Gospels that were declared heretical said something beautiful. Do not say here is the kingdom, or there it is. Because the kingdom of the Father is spread upon the earth, and men do not see it. Why don't they see it? Because they seek a spectacular kingdom. They seek signs in the sky. They seek external miracles. But the true miracle is ordinary. It's this present moment. It's your breath. It's the consciousness reading these words. It's the life flowing through your veins without you asking. It's the astonishing fact that you exist. That there is something instead of nothing. That consciousness emerged from matter. Or matter emerged from consciousness, or both are the same dancing. That's the miracle. And it's here, always. In every moment you're present to notice it. So what do you do with this revelation? How do you live knowing this?
You don't need to renounce anything. You don't need to leave your practices if they nourish you. You don't need to abandon your community if it sustains you. But you do need to remember, every day, every hour if possible, that what you seek in practice is already here. That the point of prayer is not to reach a distant God, but to recognize the presence that already is. That the point of ritual is not to earn something you don't have, but to celebrate what you are. That the point of community is not to find group salvation, but to remind each other of the truth. You live from the inside out. You no longer seek external validation to feel good about the divine. You no longer need religious authority to tell you if you're right or wrong. You have your own internal compass, and that compass is infallible when you listen to it from silence, not from ego. From silence you know what is true. You know what action is loving. You know what word is necessary, or what silence is more powerful. Not because a book tells you, but because wisdom flows directly from the source you are. And you who read this far, you are part of that remembering. This found you not because you sought it, but because you were ready. Because something in your soul knew it was time. Time to leave behind the religion of fear and embrace the spirituality of love. Time to release the need for intermediaries and reclaim your direct connection. Time to stop being a follower and become a walker of your own path. Not a solitary path, but a path where each one walks their unique trail. But we all meet at the summit, at that point where all paths converge, in that experience where all words fall silent, and only the nameless wonder of being remains. Now close this text, close your eyes once more, and simply be. Breathe, notice, recognize, this present moment, this consciousness you are, this formless love that sustains everything. This is what you are, this is what you always were, this is what you can never stop being. And with that recognition, you are free, free from the prison of separation, free from the tyranny of ego, free from the need for external approval, free to love without condition, free to live without fear, free to die without terror. Because you know now, you know with every cell of your being, that what you really are, cannot die, that it is prior to the body, that it is vaster than the mind, that it is eternal, not as long duration, but as endless present. As now that never becomes then, as this moment that is the only moment that ever exists. That is the revelation that would transform Christianity, that transforms every human being who truly understands it, doesn't read it, doesn't believe it, but experiences it, lives it, embodies it, breathes it. And when enough human beings awaken to this, the world will change, not by external revolution, by inner transformation that radiates naturally. Like light that cannot but illuminate, like love that cannot but expand, like truth that cannot but be recognized when you're ready. You're ready. That's why this found you. That's why you read to the end. That's why something in you resonated, trembled, maybe cried, or simply felt a deep stillness. Because you weren't learning something new, you were remembering something ancient, something you knew before being born in this body, something you knew before learning any language. Something you'll know after releasing this body. That something is you, the true you, the eternal you, the you without name, without story, without limits, the you that is one with all. Welcome home. You didn't arrive, you just awakened to the fact you never left. And now that you know, now that you remember, live from there, live as the light you are, live as the love you are, live as the consciousness you are, and let your life be the gospel, not the book. The good news lived, the news that we are free, that we are one, that the kingdom doesn't come from outside, it's within, now, always, in you, in everyone, in everything. If this found you, let your light guide others, not necessarily with words, with presence, with love, with the peace you radiate when you live from your center. Share this message if you feel someone else needs to remember, but share it from love, not from urgency, from invitation, not from pressure, because each one awakens in their time, and everything is perfect, everything is unfolding exactly as it should, and you are an essential part of that collective awakening. Your light matters, your remembering matters, your life matters, not because you have to do something extraordinary, but because your simple conscious presence adds something precious to the whole. One more note in the cosmic symphony, one more wave in the infinite ocean. One more sparkle of the unique light playing at being many. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for awakening. Thank you for being. And may your life be blessing, not just for you, for all those who touch your light and remember too who they are.